Hey, this is Mr. Mitchell. I'd like to show you a PowerPoint about fresh water. In some places, fresh water is in high demand. Now, we've already talked about how it's really hard to destroy water, but it just doesn't seem like it goes through the water cycle fast enough to meet the demands in some places. Some places just don't have enough fresh water, and here you have some city that is kind of bordering on a desert. And in places like deserts, they don't have aquifers. They don't have an abundance of rainwater. So all that water that they would normally use is either down in the ground or run off toward some river or lake that is nowhere near there. And they have the problem of getting the water there. And then there are places like deserts where there's really going to be a shortage of water. But kind of the irony of the world is you have places like this. These icebergs here are freshwater. They're not salt water. They're sitting in salt water, but this is completely fresh water. And you have so much fresh water here that it could really do a place like a desert a lot of good. But just haven't figured out how to get these icebergs down there without them melting. You also have large areas of aquifers. Now here in the United States we have a lot of aquifers under the ground, but that's not true everywhere. Places out west where you do have some desert areas generally don't have aquifers underneath, and there's even stretches in Georgia where you don't have aquifers under the ground. So those are two large areas of fresh water that's not easily accessed. There is something that you can do in a desert. You have desalination. That's taking the salt out of the water and making fresh water. Now, we've talked about how you do that. When you evaporate this, if you were to set this beaker out into the sun, it would evaporate fresh water. And what it had to do is have something to catch the evaporation there and have it drip off to the side. Now that is a long, slow process. Now your book is going to call it expensive too. I'm going to just assume that it's expensive if you get lots and lots of it desalinized. But desalination is something that is definitely a possible solution for places that are like deserts. Another water issue is irrigation. And I want you to know the common forms of irrigation. The most common form of irrigation is flood irrigation. Here you see rows of crops. I'm not sure what this crop is, but you can see that you have these rows of it. Flood irrigation is basically sending water through all these rows. You're basically, I guess you could say, you're drowning the crops in water. And it doesn't kill them, of course. The ground soaks up the water and has much better farming as a planting and result of having this water there. So that's probably the most common that you find in the world. One that you find a lot around here is spray irrigation. I'm sure you've been past fields where you have these sprinkler systems around that is spraying the crops there. Sometimes it's actually near a lake where they're actually drawing water from the lake to irrigate their crops, which is not harmful for the environment, because what happens to this water? This water just soaks up into the ground, the crops use it, and it just filters back into the lake. Drip irrigation conserves a lot of water, and whenever you're in a place like a desert, if you are to irrigate, it would be drip irrigation. Look at this picture on the right. You have this corn and you have these tubes. These tubes have lots of little holes in them, and whenever you send water down the tubes, it sprays just a little bit of water on each of these plants. And you can probably see a little bit better here. The wet areas of the ground are where the plants are, and it's where the water happens to have been sprayed. And you can see in overall that's not that much water, but it's being sprayed in exactly the right place. So you have conserved a lot of water if you're in an area where you have some kind of water shortage. Another term that has to do with fresh water is aquaculture. Now this is not agriculture, but this is aquaculture. Aquaculture is fish farming. And you can see this is out in some big lake or maybe even ocean where you have these huge nets and there's all kinds of fish that are in here. And what the company does, or the people who are fishing or using this aquaculture, is they will use these fish and sell them. It's kind of like having livestock in the sea. And this is like tuna or some kind of snapper or some kind of herring, the fish that people would be willing to buy. And the stuff that you see in the grocery store, that probably came from fish farms. Now around here we have catfish ponds. Now I'm not talking about catfish ponds where you and your Uncle Bubba are going to go out and catch fish. And these are places where you have tons and tons of catfish in one pond. It's not meant for private catching, it's for commercial use because catfish is a very popular kind of fish to eat. So they will take the catfish from there, they will scoop them out, and they will sell them to places. It's a form of aquaculture. Now I need to talk about water treatment, something else to do with fresh water. Now before we drink water, we have to get it from somewhere. And places that don't have wells end up getting their water through some kind of water treatment plant. Here's the deal. I know this is kind of fuzzy, but I'll do my best to show it to you. In water treatment, you first take water. The city takes water from rivers or lakes. You can see that here. In this area, a chemical that is a clumping agent is added. And what that does, it makes dirt and bacteria clump and fall to the bottom. Now that's what's happening down here. You have this huge tanking area, and down at the bottom is where all the clumped up stuff will stay, the stuff you don't want in your drinking water. Notice where the pipes are. The pipes are from the top. So you have this lake water or river water that gets all the bacteria clumped together and settles at the bottom. So what's at the top is more pure than what you had before. Then it goes through a filter. The filter is made of coal, sand, and gravel. Yes, if you were to take water and push it through coal, sand, or gravel, it will filter out, just like the soil filters out. Naturally, it will filter out problems or bacteria or things that you don't want in your water. And then finally at the bottom, you can see it's added, that chlorine is added to kill the last of the bacteria. It is then stored in big water tanks. In Rome, we have a big water tank the other side of the Brave Stadium, and that way it is there for disposal in every home that is accessed by it. And in reality, it'll look more like this picture on the right because you can't see all the tanks as easily as you can in this diagram. Now, what happens after it goes through your house? You have sewage treatment. Here we have water that has gone through people's houses. It has either gone down the drain in your bathtub, it has gone down the drain in your sink, it's been used by your dishwasher, it's been used in the toilets, and all the stuff that comes with that. So this is dirty water. You don't want to just drink what comes out of the sewage. So it has to be treated before it goes back into the rivers and oceans and streams. What happens basically is lots of chemicals are added, but another thing is added to sewage treatment. It's oxygen. Now think about this. Whenever you leave bread out uncovered, you have bacteria or mold which forms in it. And that's exactly what's happening here. Oxygen is pumped in to promote bacteria. The bacteria consumes some of that sludge and oil. And then it's treated some more before it actually goes into a river or lake. Now, what if you're at a private home? If you're at a home that's kind of out away from the city, you probably have one of these. Now, I don't have this written down, but this is called a septic tank. And I imagine many of you have septic tanks at your own home. I have one. But here's how it happens with a septic tank. You have this arrow here This is where all your wastewater comes in, from your toilet, from your bathtub, from your dishwasher, and it's not all going to be clean. In fact, very little of it will be. It comes in, you typically have some stuff that just floats straight to the bottom. The sludge, you might say. Some stuff that kind of floats up to the top, scum and whatever other things that would float up to the top. And you generally have the liquid, the water, that is out here. Now you don't have an unlimited supply here, so you have to get some of that liquid out. That liquid eventually will go out to this side. They have it to where it's not getting the scum or the sludge. The liquid goes out into your yard, and it goes back into the water cycle. Now, after a few years, you probably do have to get this sludge cleaned out. It'll cost a fair amount of money. I know I've had mine cleaned out before. But anyway, that's what happens with a septic tank.